Graduates Conversations podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations Interpreting and Translating podcast. And time flies when you're having fun. And we are here for another review of the AUSIT In Touch magazine, this time for the winter issue. How are you, Hayley?
Good, thank you. How are you, Fatih?
Good, thank you very much. We are here with Hayley Armstrong, who is the editor for AUSIT's In Touch magazine. And my favorite time of the last 3 months is catching up with Hayley and going through what's in the magazine this time around.
Well, that's very kind of you.
And
it's always a pleasure to be here too.
Pleasure to have you. And those of you that have been watching us over the last year or so now, we know that Hayley joins us from all the way from Guadalajara in Mexico. And if anything that COVID has done, it's really made the world a much smaller place, hasn't it? It's I'm stuck in my home in Melbourne and you're stuck in your home in Guadalajara. And, you know, it's just as well, but you might be in the next suburb. I couldn't see you anyway.
Yeah, that's true. In that sense, it's true, yeah.
So, look, I have to congratulate you and the editorial team for another really great issue. I had a great time reading this one as well. I want to start with the cover. I really like the cover. So tell me a little bit about the cover. We've got an Egyptian theme in the cover.
We do. It's actually from an article that's listed in our news and brief section. And it was, an image that we love too, and it was too good to not have on the cover. It's a hieroglyph of an interpreter between two people in the Egyptian setting, and one is you have to remind me, Fatih.
Yep. So one's King Horemheb.
Yeah.
So we've got King Horemheb here, and we've got interpreters, and on the other side there are trade envoys, and this is 1,300 before Christ. So we're looking thousands of years of history here, where interpreters have been working. I don't know about their working conditions there, but maybe there have been some slight improvements, but not all that much, especially within regards to the legal setting, which we'll talk about in the upcoming few minutes. But it's a great image, and just goes to show that how our profession has been around for so many years.
One thing I did like about the way the interpreter is depicted too, it's shown as, or the person is shown as two people facing both ways at the same time. But you can really imagine the interpreter, facing one person and then facing the other in the way it's drawn. And I thought that was a very clever way to depict it too. Going
into some of the special features, we've got a couple of special features for this particular edition. There's one that's particularly within regards to literary translation. There was, as we know, the Gorman translation controversy, and the special feature this issue is titled Identity, Opportunity and Cultural Appropriation, and part one is on identity. So you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So yes, as I'm sure most people are aware, during President Biden of the US, his inauguration, there was a young woman there who read out a poem she'd authored, and she's Amanda Gorman, she's a spoken word poet. And so then after that, because she was suddenly thrown into higher fame than what she already had achieved, she was wanting publishing world was wanting to then translate her poem because it was so poignant, I guess. They wanted to translate it into other language, and then controversy arose around who should translate it, who has the ability, and who should they have the same identity, and all of that. But I think came into it.
The ability was kind of, in my opinion, pushed towards the back a little bit, wasn't it? I mean, it was about heritage, skin color, gender, identity, because I think the Dutch translator Reineveld, she's white, and her pronoun is they and them.
And my understanding is that the Dutch translator isn't normally a translator; she's an author, and she was had recently won a prize for her own writing, and then to try and capitalize on her recent fame as well, the Dutch publicist asked her to translate into English, and so that's part of the reason why she resigned, was that she didn't feel that she did feel the identity aspect of it, and therefore couldn't do, in her opinion, a translation that would justify the original, or do justice to the original is what I mean. So but yeah, that was what you were saying was definitely the case of the Catalan translator. So he I think had been commissioned and had translated it, and he was the one who they said, yeah, well, we'll pay for the work you've done, but it won't be published in the end for the reason of identity. And so that to me brought about, after doing research and sort of reading up on it, because on the surface of it, it seemed like, well, ability shouldn't be questioned if, they were talking about professional translators, but then there's this whole other aspect of identity and opportunity to do translation, and how people of color may not have had the opportunity due to the hierarchical, the way that the world is structured and on all of that. It's a thorny issue.
It is a thorny issue. What if there isn't a person of that particular color, of that particular gender, isn't available in a particular language? Like, what are you going to do? And look, I will leave it there for people to comment on.
Yes.
But yeah, so from that point, I think that's when you decided that you'd do a special feature on this, because you've got a couple of articles there, one with Anita Patel and another with Dr. Mridula Nath Chakraborty.
Mm-hmm. So yes, Mridula Chakraborty, she had written an article for The Conversation, which is a website that writes it's a not-for-profit media outlets to publish stories that are written by academics and researchers. So my understanding of her article is that on the one hand there is the identity issue, and that in an ideal world perhaps there would be people, translators with the same identity as the original author who would be able to translate and all of that. But she also, there is that thing of if there's someone with the same identity and the same language pair, or all language pairs, and also if it had been a poem written in a different language, I forget the example she gave, but it might have been like if it was written in Thai to be translated into, I don't know, Chinese or something, would there have been the same controversy around who translated it? And it still comes into like something other than translation, really. It's all more to do with politics, I guess.
There is a lot of that going around these days. So it is a very politics-centered world these days, isn't it?
It comes into politics, and also about publishing houses and how they run and how they decide, and that sort of in a way separate to translation as well. And then that we also have an article from Anita Patel, who her article deals a little bit with a form of poetry called Pantun. I think I'm pronouncing that right, from Malaysia. And so she had a specific example there of a translation done by Aro Winstead, which to me the poem that the translation he did was more of an adaptation, I guess, to an English style, whereas she was suggesting it may have been more, I guess, closer to the original, to follow the style of the original, which is more, the scheme that people use currently is to try and mimic the original, I guess, whereas I think the translation that Winstead did was a century or two ago, where the translation theory, I guess, it was different.
So he was probably domesticating rather than
rather than keeping
foreignization. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are two angles on the general theme around identity, opportunity, and cultural appropriation.
I mean, you're right though. It's a very different world compared to 20 years ago, let alone 200 years ago. And definitely, I don't see any issue with things being retranslated and to be adapting to modern life.
Because I don't remember what period it was, but in some of the reading I've done about the history of translation, that there was a period there where it was perfectly fine to add your own notes as the translator into a translation that you're doing, and that was just standard practice. I think it might have been during medieval times. And so as translation practice progresses, I guess translations do go out of date, for want of a better way to say it, and some things can be retranslated in light of current conditions. Or
I think so. I think so too. There's the world is definitely moving at a much faster pace than it did, and why not retranslate things and adapt it? There are new theories, there are new approaches, there are new politics, there are new views. I mean, I don't see any issue there being multiple translations of one particular text or novel, right?
Exactly.
Very good. So yes, it's a great read. Goes for about 6 pages, so it goes quite in depth, and I think I really like what you've done with these special features. There might be less stories within the issue, but they're more in-depth stories that you can really spend some time thinking seriously about.
Yeah, that topic definitely did get me thinking about stuff that I might not have otherwise thought about much, and it is a really interesting topic and a thorny one, but one that needs to be talked about. So yeah, hopefully this can be a little contribution towards, I guess, the debate.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. And then we've got a wonderful piece here on Indigenous Interpreting. A Pertama Elder Christabel Swan, who is a founding member of today's Australian Indigenous Interpreting profession. And she was interviewed, and she tells quite a lot of stories from her childhood and all the way to her adulthood, and she's in her mid-70s now. And I think that's a really, really great piece as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I enjoyed her piece as well. I like her writing style. And as far as I understand, she is one of the last surviving fluent speakers of Padawam. I think it's pronounced Padawam language, which is from Aranda country, outside of Alice Springs. And so she is working with younger generations to try and keep the language alive, because I saw in a different interview that I think there's only 10 fluent speakers, or 10 to 12 fluent speakers left. So she's doing great work trying to rejuvenate the language, and she was the first, as you say, accredited interpreter of her language.
Yeah, she tells us her experiences in the courtroom, her experiences growing up as a child, and then her experiences as a teacher as well, and she's teaching the kids now. And it's so sad. You're saying there's like 10 to 12 people speaking this language, and right before our eyes, we might be seeing the end of a language, but hopefully not, and hopefully the young'uns carry that forward. And so great article there. We won't give too much away. Part 2 of the special feature of Legal T&I. Another 6 pages full, so in depth again. I really enjoyed that. We've got part 2 is broken into 3 parts. You've got a book review, and then there is an article on translating covert recordings, and finally we have Professor Ludmilla Stern interviewing practitioners Cynthia Lee and Sylvia Martinez about the recommended national standards for working with interpreters in courts and tribunals, and if it's being implemented or not. So take us back to the book review, because I remember you were telling in the previous interviews, you were saying that, book reviews, get it in there. There it is. So
Yep, here's our latest one.
here's one from Amy Wong. Tell us about this particular book review.
So Amy Wang reviewed this book for us. It's the Routledge Handbook of Forensic Linguistics, and we thought it was an appropriate choice to go with our legal specialising, as the other ones are to do with covert recordings and court interpreting. She has reviewed other books for us previously too, I think, and I'm not sure which issues because it was before I came on board, but Amy has been a great contributor. So it was a very thick book. I think it was like 700 pages.
Yeah, it's the Routledge books tend to be, they're not the maybe your most leisure reading books that you would have on the side of your bed, but they are very essential books.
So yeah, Amy did focus on the sections that would be of most interest to practitioners of interpreting and translation, and so you can read about her thoughts there. The other article, or one of the part 2, I guess, was about translating covert recordings, and it was written by Professor Helen Fraser, who's the director of the Research Hub for Language and Forensic Evidence at the University of Melbourne. And she, I guess, explains a bit about what the process is for translating covert recordings and advocating for how this can be improved. And because a lot of the time, just the nature of covert recordings is that you can't necessarily hear everything clearly because the recordings are covert, they're not the best quality recordings, and how the courts don't distinguish between what's a transcription and what's a translation, and so that's probably an area that could be improved in terms of policy making, I guess.
You're definitely right there, and I've done quite a few of these covert recording transcriptions, and it's neither here nor there. It's it's interpreting, it's translation. It's very difficult to hear things. You're playing things over and over again, and every time you listen to it, and then it's something different. There's conditioning involved as well. Like what do you want to hear?
Kind of hear what you want to hear. Yeah,
exactly. And after listening to something 10 times over, it's something completely different than what you originally thought it was. And you're there sitting at the police station, and it kind of puts off your, impartiality a little bit as well.
And coincidentally, she's written one of the chapters in the Routledge handbook on the opposite page. So.
Very good. Did Amy review that chapter?
I should check with that. I didn't.
Yes, chapter 26. She has. All right.
She has. There we go.
I wonder if she knew if you were going to have Helen Fraser as part of this issue, or
I don't know that we did say that. Helen might have given her the heads up, but because Helen is straight on to all of that stuff, my co-editor.
Well, Amy, you've done very well, and you can see those 2 pages right next to each other. And I really like Amy's profile picture there as well. Kind of reminds me of
I love that too.
Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban.
The only thing missing is the measurement behind her height measurement.
That's right. So yes, lovely smile there, Amy, on that profile picture. Keep smiling. And then we've got the wonderful Professor Ludmilla Stern from University of New South Wales interviewing Cynthia Lee and also Sylvia Martinez, who are very experienced court interpreters, and if the recommended national standards are being implemented or not. And I've been, as you know as well, interviewing Ludmilla on her research too. And, there's a lot that she has observed, and we look forward to her findings. But it's really good to see it from the point of view of the practitioner as well in this article.
What I liked about this article was the progress, I guess, that's being made thanks to the standards. Cynthia Lee was able to advocate for getting all of the documents in time prior to actually taking on the engagement, which is a really excellent thing, obviously, for practitioners to be able to prepare in terms of terminology and all of that ahead of time and not be scrambling to find the words as you're working. And the judge in the case that she was working on seemed to be aware of the new standards and was happy to accommodate them. And in Sylvia Martinez's case, she was able to advocate for the use of hearing loops because of COVID. Obviously, most court interpreting is whispered interpreting, and so if you can't whisper during COVID because you need to be 1.5 meters away, so she was able to get hearing loops to be approved, I guess, for use in the court, and it seems to be that it might be an ongoing thing in that particular court and perhaps growing.
And she was also able to get an interpreting partner as well.
Partner, that's right. Yes.
I've never seen that, and I knew that Sylvia had done that a few weeks ago when she shared on LinkedIn her experiences. And it's so important. Like two key things there with Cynthia. Exactly. The preparation material. I mean, it's just I can't believe we're saying that the profession's been around for thousands of years, and we're in 2021 now, and we all know how important it is to have access to preparation material, and only when an interpreter is well prepared are they going to give that equality, that the equal access to justice that the whole profession is there for.
I mean, to be able to do your job, you need to have the basic materials, and one of those things is to know in advance at least the general topic of what the case is about, and ideally as much information as is available to be able to do the job properly.
Yeah, so practitioners out there, this document is there, the recommended national standards. Cynthia has done it by asking for material through the LSB. And in this particular case, she got quite a bit of material, but then she says that for some other jobs it wasn't the case. So there is still a work in progress. We get to see the good and the bad in this interview as well. And same with Sylvia. I mean, she was very lucky that this particular job, she was able to get a working partner as well as a hearing loop, and it was just, from what I read, just a very, very ideal setting.
She sounded elated from the
I know.
She was able to set up.
And like these photos that are on there, it just looks like they were taken just after their interpreting as well. They just look so happy. I mean, it's not, but you would have a big smile on your face after those particular experiences. But then again, there's the good and the bad. It's not always the case. So
it's not standard practice yet, but hopefully it's a step towards that direction.
Definitely. So a big kudos to everyone involved in this particular project, and well done to Ludmila, Cynthia and Sylvia. We'll look forward to hearing further from you and your experiences. And I think it's just very important for us practitioners to know that this document exists, and what our rights are and what our responsibilities are. And look, I'm going to put a link in the description of the page as well. It's a free document. Just click on it, read it, and make sure that you know what your rights are, and you can request breaks, you can request repetitions, clarifications, you can request a hearing loop, you can request preparation material. These are all your rights, and this isn't just for your personal entertainment. This is so that people have that equal access to justice.
Exactly.
So we'll just keep repeating that until we are heard, and until this becomes standard and not just an anomaly that we're all very, very happy about when we hear about it. So yes, well done, ladies that are involved. Finally, we've got the usual AUSIT roles focus. So we've got branch PD coordinator. Lisa Mayer, who is the Queensland branch's professional development coordinator. So you've got some questions that she answers. And then you've got the 3 quick questions section. I particularly like this one. It's straight to the point. And you're asking your questions this time to Peter Filmer. Who is Peter Filmer and what are these 3 questions about?
Peter Filmer is the manager of events and sister cities for the Blacktown City Council in New South Wales. So he is a regular user of interpreting services and translation, I understand. So the questions I wanted to ask him were, I guess, based around what he's looking for in an interpreter to sort of, I guess, help us prepare ourselves to be delivering the service that people want as consumers or as users of translation and interpreting services. So yeah, I guess the questions are based around that, and he was very accommodating in being able to take the time out to answer those questions for us.
Very good, thank you. And finally, we have member profiles. We have a translator English into Chinese and a translator English into German.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always nice to have members from AUSIT answer it's 2 questions on this page. Just to know, I guess, to meet people, it's a way, I mean, it's not directly meeting them, but to learn a little bit about other people involved in the organisation, and it gives a personal touch to, I guess, that we're a bunch of people, not just
I know, like
an association.
Definitely, I love this section because, you know, translating, interpreting, it's usually a really lonely profession. You know,
yeah.
rarely you have an office full of translators and you're all working together, you know, enjoying that morning coffee together and going out for after-works drinks together. And with an interpreter as well, it's very rarely that, you know, you work in an institution where there are multiple interpreters. We know that in some hospitals there are in-house interpreters, but a big majority of our practitioners, it's quite a lonely world out there. So just, you know, putting faces on these practitioners and learning about their experiences, I think you're definitely right. It definitely adds that personal touch to our profession.
Well, hopefully we've achieved that aim. That's the idea behind that particular series.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for another lovely chat. Now, before we sign off for the day, let's have a little bit of a chat about how to access the magazine. We know that it's available on the AUSIT website. If you're a member, you get the latest issue. Tell us a little bit about how they can access the magazine.
So there's a couple of different formats that you can use to read the magazine. If you go directly to the website, it's the most visible way to see it, I guess, is a PDF version where it's laid out like a physical magazine, the way the pages are set up. Another option, so that's more, I guess, for reading on your iPad or your computer. And if you're on a different device, I quite like the Issue version, which is an app. Issue is spelled ISSUU, so not W. And you can choose either the flipbook version, which is more or less a PDF version in there too, or there's the blog style version, which I quite like because then the typeset can be adjusted to your device a bit easier.
And you're open for content. How can people reach you if they have a story to tell or if they want to review a book? What do they need to do?
The easiest way is to send us an email. So it could be either intouch@ausit.org or it's editor@ausit.org. Either Helen and my emails. Helen is co-editor with me. And inside the inside cover of the magazine, there's the list of everyone who's on the editorial committee too. So you can also approach any one of those people and they can bring your idea to the next committee meeting that we have. So yeah, but they're the main ways. I guess, or the most direct way.
Very good. And I will put those email addresses in the description as well. So if you wanted to make a comment, reach out to Hayley and her team and maybe contribute to the magazine.
We'd love to hear from you, yeah.
Definitely. Hayley and the team would love to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in today. I was with Hayley Armstrong, who is the editor of AUSIT's In Touch magazine. So please, you can get onto the issue, that's ISUU app, and access the magazine. Or if you're an AUSIT member, you can also access it from the AUSIT website as well. We do look forward to talking to Hayley again for the next edition. And until then, Hayley, have a lovely, lovely rest of your night. And we will see everyone again in the next episode.
All Graduates Conversations Podcast.